Acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS,
The lifestyle of some male homosexuals has triggered an epidemic of a rare form of cancer.
The bigger, the better.
This cancer has a death rate of 80%.
And the deaths kept coming and coming.
AIDS also causes unusual infections with death rates of 100% in 2 years.
Hello, pozdrav, bonjour, hola, guten tag and dobar dan. My name is Alan Fischer and this is another installation of What the Hell is series, and today we'll be discussing the AIDS crisis of the 80s and 90s. Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, also known as AIDS, is an illness that attacks the person's immune system, making it weaker and weaker until a person dies from another disease, for example, pneumonia. AIDS comes from the HIV virus, which can be contracted through sexual intercourse or blood. Now, through time, the treatments have gotten better and better to the point where many people that have AIDS live a pretty okay life with it. However, the disease can still not be healed and you can still not get rid of the virus, which means that if you contract HIV, you will die with it. So yeah, watch out for those needles in the park. However, it's the 80s, or more specifically 1981, and the first cases of AIDS has just been discovered.
This is the report from the CDC that was published 40 years ago in 1981, describing a pneumonia-like disease in 5 gay men.
With HIV only being discovered 2 years later in 1983. And the whole world is in a frenzy, but today we will focus specifically on the US. You see, the American president at the time, Ronald Reagan, was still running his war on drugs, which, by the way, quite a big failure. So for a virus that was also contracted by junkies who reused or even shared their needles, yeah, they were really not fans of that. Minorities were also targeted, probably homosexuals the most. Hey, it's me from the future here. I just wanted to say that even the people that did research on AIDS, even they told the people at the time that it's a gay disease. So it's not just the people's fault, it's also the fault of the doctors and the researchers who did work on this thing. But still, it was also a bit of, we do a little homophobia. And AIDS even got the name gay plague. Oh my fucking god. And patients with AIDS started getting isolated from the rest of the world, because paranoia was still running pretty wild with people, even though doctors insisted that it could only be contracted through blood or sex. But you know how it goes with these things, people were scared. Some people probably used the crisis to push their hateful ideologies. By this point, a lot of the celebrities who have contracted HIV were starting to come out. Like Freddie Mercury, who famously in 1991 came out with his diagnosis only 24 hours before his death. And another interesting example is Rock Hudson, who became one of the first mainstream celebrities who had their diagnosis publicly known in 1985. Even though he and his team did everything in their power to stop that information from coming out. And why that was so important was because Rock Hudson was part of the golden era of Hollywood, so to have someone like that be the first well-known patient with AIDS was a pretty big deal. However, Mr. Hudson would unfortunately die the same year in 1985. In 1985 we would also get the first movie about AIDS called Bodies.
Caught me watching. The bigger, the better.
8 years before Philadelphia came out. The movie would depict the life of a gay AIDS patient in the 1980s. And through the 90s the topic would remain quite taboo. However, with years and more research coming out about it, the topic would start being talked about more often, even publicly. And breaking the stigma around AIDS allowed us to make more progress in this field, allowing the people who contract the HIV virus today a bit more comfortable life. A bit more different than back in the day when AIDS was considered a certified deathbed. And if I may, I would like to wish you the great rest of the morning, day, evening, or whatever time this message may find you. Thank you.